Welcome to Guangzhou, where a historic Worlds run has brought two European, a North American, and an LPL team fighting to claim the Summoners Cup for their home region. Bet you didn't think I'd be saying that coming into a semifinal, but today the Kingslayers face off as Invictus Gaming and G2 clash in the first semifinal bout. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined by Indiana Frosker in black, Martin DeFisciolunga, and Joshua Jat Leesman. We are officially in uncharted territory here. How are you guys handling all this? You've had a few days to kind of make sense of it.
I feel like I've been here before. I've cast a lot of LCS playoffs, so I'm used to a lot of, EWOLCS teams in semifinals.
Yeah.
This is
we have had
it's also happened in Worlds
there.
before.
2015.
LCS. What happened then?
See, I thought this was like the setup
Korean
of a
teams
bad
with it.
joke. 3 teams walking to.
Right, exactly. It is that kind of a setup. Well, Worlds so far has been an absolutely wild ride, piloted not only by this desk, but by the multitude of desks, bringing the biggest esports event of the year to fans all across the globe. Here you have some of their beautiful faces now on your screen. I love to see it. I love to know that people in every time zone are tuning in to watch these teams go at it today. Now, if the group stage left you hungry for more upsets, then quarterfinal weekend was a buffet of shocking results, where on one side of the bracket, Cloud9 knocked Korea out, while Fnatic took a 3-1 victory over EDG to give us the dream Western semifinal. But turning to the other side of the bracket, we had 2 tournament favorites slain by underdogs, with G2 taking down RNG and Invictus overcoming KT Rolster.
And here's the thing, you can be Giant Slayers if you have the right sword, and G2 found the right sword. They played their style, they went for the 1-3-1. I don't know where they found it. I know it's Stone, they pulled it out of a wet lake, because it was a little bit shaky back in play-ins, but they just continue to ramp harder and harder.
Yeah, and I love the fact that in the last game, the final one, they decided to not play around full laners early, but go to Uzi's lane with Jankos, take him down quickly with the wards on the lantern, happened multiple times, and Jan and Medid got out of that lane looking really good. And then, of course, Perks took over.
Battle wards, baby.
The wards were amazing. We said
That's how you kill the player.
Yeah.
Korea doesn't know how to use these wards.
I thought Perks was the highlight, especially in games 4 and 5, even if it's been Wonder, who I feel like carried them to that point. Just impressive performances by every individual on G2 at different stages of the tournament.
Now that's for G2. Of course, Invictus Gaming also had an intense 5-game series to take down KT Rolster from Korea.
And it was the magic moment for IG. They could never quite get it together just like G2, but they finally did it, taking down a best-of-5, going to the 5th game and stepping up where previously they had taken a step back.
Yeah, and this was a series where they were 2 Nexus auto attacks away from a 3-0 against KT Rolster. They jumped out of the gates in that series, but then when it turned back against them, it maybe felt like another one of the great Invictus Gaming chokes, but it wasn't. They came in strong in game 5 with a late game composition of all things, where people said they would never succeed. It was really an amazing series.
Yeah, and they were just as shocked that they had done it. You listen to interviews and Rookie's like, no one expected us to win. We didn't expect ourselves to win. And now they're almost just as surprised as G2 to find themselves birthing a semifinal.
I mean, the whole world was shocked coming out of that quarterfinal weekend, which is why I want to now have the discussion around, well, with every year, fans hold out hope for their teams to kind of make that run. And we saw the possibility of it last year with, say, Misfits, or 2015. We're looking at the 2 European squads that got knocked out at that point. But I want to talk about, why is it happening this year? How is it that this World Championships, those dreams and hopes are being realized?
I think, first of all, being proactive is now actually favored compared to being reactive. And typically, the best Korean teams were great at being very reactive. They could read what kind of moves you were making and then punish you for it. But now when it's proactivity and it's very, very strong snowball champs that get solo kills, you see numbers that are completely different. Like on your screen, 92% solo kills different here. 92 solo kills in 2017. Jat, 2018.
177.
Almost double the amount.
And we're not even done yet.
We're not even done yet. Like, it's actually insane. We also then get, less tanks, and there's just a lot of reasons for proactivity and damage dealers being better, and that has really hurt certain teams.
Yeah, and the thing is in a compressed schedule, you only have a limited amount of time to figure it out. Everyone is playing to that same adaptability. North America, Korea, China, we're all racing towards that meta, but you hear things like Cloud9 who look at Vitality's playstyle and they say, they can do it, let's throw it all out. Let's stop pretending to be Korea. Let's just play our style. And in the compressed schedule, it's like you get finite number of chances to get it, and these 4 teams got it faster than anyone else.
Yeah, and I agree with all these things that have happened. Korea playing their game is actually to try to play slow and controlled, especially if proactive play is favored. That's going to hurt them. But cast your mind back to last year. Misfits was a team fight away from knocking out SKT in the quarterfinals. C9 was a team fight away from knocking Team WE out of the quarterfinals. And even when we moved on, like RNG SKT was another 5-game series. We had been very close to having 2 Western teams in the semifinals last year. So there were changes that helped push them over the top this year. But we were closer than memory serves when you look back at 2017.
It's true. The only difference, I feel, is in the semifinal, you still felt like, okay, SKT and Samsung, they are the favorites. They're going to make it into the final, especially Samsung ended up looking fantastic. You don't have that feeling now. With all those big Korean teams knocked out already, IG is sitting as the only remaining team from Asia, and then you have the 3 Western ones. It's just anyone's game, which is the first time we had that feeling going into semifinal.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize, like, that's the cliff. That was the actual gap there. It's the fact that now looking at G2 versus Invictus Gaming, no one is immediately saying this is Invictus Gaming favorite. Now everyone's like, you know, they could possibly do it.
Is that true,
Right,
Jad?
exactly. And any team at this point can possibly do it. But I think that context is important. The idea that on paper, you had 0 Western teams in the semifinals last year to this year now having 3. And that's going to look, oh my God, so dramatic and drastic. But with the consideration of just a team fight or 2 change, and now it's 2 to 3.
And we'll move on to next year, and I don't expect to have exactly the same results.
I mean, it'll be all Western teams, right? We're following the
We just got to continue the trend.
Right, yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
All right, there were a lot of casualties over the last 3 weeks of Worlds, not least of which was Deficio and Jat's top 20. So let's pull that back up onto your screen here and take a look at how many remaining players there are in the tournament from this list. I believe there are only 3. Look at that. You got Rookie and the Shy of Invictus and Caps, of course, from Fnatic.
Yeah. Production decided to take the same shot during this or that. I stand by the effort we put into making this list, and just because your team lost doesn't make you a worse player.
Right.
But I will also say how different from expectations this tournament ended up being, and that list is a relic of the old expectations.
Very much so. Well, rather than listing the 20 players left in the tournament and just naming them the true top 20, I wanted to pull some combined World Semifinals All-Pro teams. So I had the 3 of these analysts submit their votes for the best player in each position remaining in the tournament, and here's how they fell.
Yeah, and this ended up turning into quite a heated discussion since we needed to come to
it was not unanimous by any
consensus, so to speak. I think you can make the argument
Too many
that
good players.
the Shy could be on this list instead of Wonder, but we're looking at the whole tournament and Wonder's performance and a lot of other contentious points on this list.
Yeah, and specifically for me, it was between Reckless and Jackie Love, and I think it was between this debate of high highs and very low lows versus consistency, the fact that Reckless has been consistent across the whole tournament.
Yeah, and I think when you also look at the strength of solo lanes in this tournament, I think they're the 2 most important lanes. And sometimes actually AD carry support and jungle hold less of an influence over the game than the mid and top lane positions. So I don't necessarily think that because Fnatic has 2 people on this list that they're for sure the favorites in the tournament. I think it speaks to the fact that it's still anyone's tournament.
But it does create this really interesting discussion where I think a lot of people are starting to favor Fnatic. And so when you look at, you know, kind of the team pieces that put them together, their bot lane for one, as well as the fact that they do have solo laners that on a good day, you know, Caps can pop off. That's why Fnatic are starting to lean towards being the favorite for the tournament.
And Broxo was right up there in the discussion against Svenskeren, which even aids that point. But the one position in which you guys were unanimous was the mid lane in Rookie. So I want to talk about this guy because there was some contention elsewhere, not here.
I mean, best mid laner in the world, probably best tournament we've ever seen this guy play as well. I don't understand how he's able to be up 20 CS in every single lane he plays while roaming bot lane and top lane, getting kills for his team, returning, and for some reason he's able to once again get more CS. And I think the fact he can do this on so many different champions is actually insane.
Yeah, that's the key thing for me. It's the fact that it's like Lysandra and Galio, some of his bigger played champion pools. When you see a lot of other guys stepping up on the likes of the LeBlancs, the Syndras, even a Yasuo performance coming out occasionally, it's Rookie who's being flashy on more of these utility-driven.
Where's my Jace?
I have a feeling it's going to come out today.
You think it's coming?
I think it's
Give me
coming.
the style picks. We will look into his matchup against Perks a little bit more as we close in on the series. But turning our attention to that first semifinal match, we're going to send it over to Captain Flowers, Papa Smithy, and Azael to give us an idea of what they're going to focus on in Game 1, just 20 minutes away.
Thank you, Dash. In your semifinal All-Pro team, you highlighted the 2 lanes that we think could dramatically swing this matchup one way or the other. The solos are going to have a big role to play here, especially considering we've seen G2 really like those 1-3-1s.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone on the desk agreeing Rookie is the best mid laner in the world, and a lot of people talking about Shy being the best top laner left in the tournament. Certainly some debate there, but that is one of the things that is so interesting because G2 depends so heavily on the 1-3-1. You need to get those solo lane advantages, and one of the ways they were really able to do that against RNG was through the draft, through this utilization of flex picks, early picking the Aatrox, and having the flexibility to then fake that it was going top. They get Poppy, which did so well into it in the previous game. They flex the Rise up top, they slam that. Then in the final game, RNG didn't have the confidence to pick Poppy into Aatrox, even though it eventually ended up going top.
And that crazy takeaway message was that the champion pool overlap not existing between Let Me and Xiaohu compared to the fact that you look specifically at G2. My biggest takeaway, if I'm trying to prepare for them, is that when you look at Wonder's champion pool, the only unique pick he has that has not been played by Perkz since the group stage started is the Camille that doesn't really fit the mid lane. Every other pick is overlapping. So now even side selection, I'm sure, would have been poured over. Because previously you said if G2's on blue side, then it's much harder to ban away things. If you're a red side team, you feel worse about banning away, say, the pocket pick like the Heimerdinger. It's such a lose-lose scenario. And if you cannot keep up, in theory, you think, okay, the Shy, he should be able to play all these champions. They haven't shown it, so whether they can actually pull off the same level of flex is going to be critical in IG winning this best of 5.
Well, we are excited and can't wait to see how these teams face off. But until that kickoff happens, back to you, Dash.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. They were already spotlighting the solo lanes, the matchups there, both in the top, the mid, talking about crossover and champion pool, talking about the importance of side selection. And so very quickly, 15 minutes into this show, I'm grasping the idea that most of our time will be spent around those 2 lanes, the picks, the matchups, and maybe how the junglers affect those.
This is probably going to be the most important draft phase, I think, for any of the best of 5s. At least when I was doing this, I know we were doing a couple practice drafts over the course of our preparation. And for me, it's about ready check on Nocturne. Can Invictus Gaming actually play Nocturne? And then skill check on Aatrox. Is the Victor ban that you can now take blind mean that Aatrox completely falls away from this meta?
Right, we talk about the compressed schedule, but this is finally the time where teams have had a substantial amount of time to adapt, practice, change their strategies coming in. So I'm just excited to see what that first game brings for us. We're taking a quick break. When we return, we take a deeper look, at how champion pools could affect today's clash and spotlight the mid lane matchup between Rookie and Perkz. All that and more after this. Welcome back to World's Countdown as we narrow in on the first game, just 10 minutes away from the player introductions. Now, looking at pre-tournament expectations, there's no sugarcoating it. G2 had the worst year in the org's history before this historic Worlds run.
Yeah, because when 2017 ended, they said goodbye to 4 players on that lineup that won EULCS so many times in a row. Sven Mithi went to North America, Trick Expect went back to Korea. So it was a complete rebuild around just Perkz. And when we saw the new lineup as EU casters, we were like, this is not going to be the same success. These guys are not going to dominate in Europe like the old lineup. We just never expected this to happen, them to actually peak now.
Yeah, and even when they had the spring final appearance, you're thinking, wow, that's an overperformance. But they lost in the spring final. They lost in quarterfinals in the summer split.
3-0.
But whenever this team needed just one more win, like truly needed it, they got it.
Right.
All the way from the regional qualifier when they were down 2 losses.
And all the way to Fongru Buffalo.
Yeah, Fongru Buffalo. They called Mark Ruffalo. They got the help. They beat the Flash Wolves, and suddenly G2 was still alive. And then games 4 and 5 of that RNG series was peak performance G2.
Yeah, and the Kings of Europe, or former Kings of Europe, decided to reclaim their crown, and they took down the Monarchs of the LPL, and they said, the best team fighting team in the world, we're going to play split push, we're going to play 1-3-1, and they beat them at their own game.
It's very true. It's actually just insanely impressive how whenever we question a player on this team or a pick on this team, they show up in the next game. They can actually change that. They can actually play this champion, or this player can step up and do something for his team. And I think we saw with G2 over the 5 games that they can take a couple of punches in the face and they don't just tilt. They don't just fall apart. They actually adapt for the next one.
And they so heavily commit to their play style. only 25% of this team's kills come in team fights. The lowest team fight kill percentage of every team in the group stage and beyond. So it really has been about these small skirmishes around the map, usually started by their solo laners, that have proven successful for this team.
Yeah, if that doesn't speak to G2's style, I don't know what would. And every team coming from play-ins has suffered a few punches along the way to the semifinals. Now, for those unfamiliar, Invictus Gaming arrived to the top 4, pushing through a year of strong starts, followed by disappointing finishes.
I mean, there's almost a lot of correlations between G2 and IG's rise, this idea of a rebuild. You know, Invictus Gaming guts their roster. They start putting together all these superstars. Jacula was the cherry on top, and they're full steam ahead, 19-1, super team now. The rebuild was a complete success, except when they get into these high-pressure situations. They look at RNG in the semifinals. They look at Rogue Warriors in the 3rd versus 4th place match, and they just collapse until they came across KT recently.
Yeah, and this is a series where they had to be clutch, right? They had the opportunity to win in 3 games, couldn't quite close it out, and you thought they were going to tilt off the face of the earth. This moment right here, they were going to 3-0 KT and make it all the way to semifinals, and then they didn't.
So close to being super clutch.
And then they lost game 4, and then Rookie didn't buy items in game 5 at the start. And then they won late game, where they had failed every time in the past. They overcame that demon.
And we suddenly started seeing Jacula when he flashed forward. It was the correct time to pick up 2 to 3 kills for his team. We saw Ning, a player we said, this guy can barely play any champions, pick the Kindred and go IH on it, and then be a big carry as well. So there were suddenly a lot of things in the Game 5 game that made us go, maybe these guys have more than just the early game snowball that we used to see back in the LPL.
Yeah, and these teams are similar in the fact that they have amazing solo laners that they rely on to succeed. But when we talked about G2 having the lowest team fight kill percentage of all teams and groups, IG is the 2nd highest. So the way that they actually try and win the game is very different. G2 spreads you out in split pushes. IG just tries to ram down the mid lane and get all the kills.
Well, for G2's jungler Jankos, the only downside to playing today is that he can't watch the mid lane matchup play out from the stands.
The best players from Invictus Gaming are top and mid lane, so I think Wunder and Perix will have a lot of issues against the Shy and the Rookie. I think it's going to be very difficult, but I think their bot lane is not their star players. Compared to RNG, in which UZI was smurfing on lane every game, I think right now it's a little bit easier for Hyun and Wadid. When it comes to Ning, I think I can deal with him. I think Rookie and Perix are very similar. I think both of them are playmakers, and I think both teams need to play around them, otherwise they will maybe crumble. So I think that it's going to be a really even matchup, and normally I would be happy to watch it from my home, but I have to jungle for one of them, so I will do my best to support Perix.
Well, thank you for taking the bullet for the rest of us, Jankos, and playing on the world stage in the semifinal.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody has to. But we really are, about to be treated to something special here when we talk about these individual matchups, and in particular today's mid laners. I mean, these are guys who are having the tournaments of their careers, building up to a potentially calamitous clash here in just 10 or so minutes.
It's the 2 best performing mid laners of the tournament, and Rookie right now wears the hat of best mid laner in the world right now. And Perks gets his chance where he gets to take a shot at that. And so far, he has been so clutch. When a stage was set for Caps to really come in and excel, and Caps has had some of his moments, Perks is just smashing every expectation.
Yeah, you look at the laning stats of both of these guys are absolutely absurd. I thought games 4 and 5 of that RNG series, Perks had 2 of the best mid lane games I've ever seen, but Rookie has had close to those performances consistently throughout the entire championship.
So let's talk about these guys then in how they might match up. As we already kind of hit on during portions of this segment, side selection and champion select are going to be hugely relevant to the success of these solo laners. We did something kind of cool. We took the champion pools of each of these players. What you see there in the middle is champions that are shared, unique picks on the outside.
Yeah, and I think the big difference we see in terms of champ pool is that Perks is mainly playing things that are good for himself, where he can be the big carry, where he can snowball on his own, like especially a Kali and a Cassiopeia on his side. On the other one, we actually get Galileo for Rookie, and he also has 4 Lissandra games. Perks only has a single one. And that's important because Rookie, while being the best player, is not doing it by just winning his own lane and then being the big carry. He's actually doing it by helping the rest of his team, which has made it harder for other teams to punish the IG early game. Because when you can try and win bot side, Rookie shows up suddenly and he turns it around once again. The fact you can do this, like perform so well and then also play supportive champs is insane.
Yeah, it's this idea that you know exactly where G2 are going to sack. It's usually going to be Wadid and Harnan that are left alone kind of to do their own devices, Tom, Kench, Jin, these supportive picks. Whereas Invictus Gaming, you don't really know where they're going to sack. But more often than not, Rookie will take that bullet for the team, and he'll say, okay, I'm going to blind pick my mid laner. I'm going to be the carry. I'm going to play the utility. Whereas G2, it's a bit more clear that it's about these solo laners and the flexing.
So, go ahead. I have a question to follow.
Yeah, in this particular matchup, I think the fact that IG selected to go blue side when the majority of their Worlds games have been on red side thus far speaks to trying to, I think, attack G2's strengths, because G2 has noticeably stronger drafts, getting power picks like Aurelia or Akali and then flexing them between solo lanes. So even though that champ pool graphic had Akali just on perks, Rookie can play it. He just hasn't yet.
Okay, how do you expect a player like Perks to interact with a player like Rookie if we talk about Rookie finding CS advantages but then going elsewhere, essentially in some cases being non-interactive, but Perks needs to generate his own advantage? So how does that happen, or how do these two players come up against each other?
Most likely you will see Perks actually pair up with Jankos and then go for plays together against Rookie, or the other option is when Rookie is roaming, you go to the other side.
Gotcha.
That's what a lot of mid laners can do. If he goes bot, you go top, and then you suddenly get an advantage for Wonder. It just requires you to have a champion that can actually push out the lane fast enough to do that.
All right, 3 minutes ahead of the player introductions. We're moving into win conditions. I'm tossing it right back to you, Deficio, with G2's wins.
So I looked at 3 big things here for them. Jankos with Deed, they need to outperform the counterparts, so Ning and Baolan on the side of IG, and I think this is very possible as well for G2, because that's how you can suddenly help your solo laners actually get ahead. Snowball champions in these solo laners, we always talk about it, Akali, Aatrox, these kind of champions. It's very important Wonder and Perks, when they get ahead, can actually finish the game for yourself or for your team. Last one, early game from IG is aggressive. Ning is ganking everything from level 2 to level 10. You know it's going to happen, respect it.
Yep.
All righty, Frost, you've been tasked with IG's win conditions. How do you respond?
First and foremost, you need to prioritize Ning's champion pool. You already talked about it. We heard it from Jankos. He thinks he can take him. Ning has 2 champions. You're looking at Xin Zhao and you're looking at the Camille. Maybe the Kindred Infinity Edge makes a special appearance. Then you need to stack your hard engage tools. They're all about the lane kingdom. Once you have a lead, you need to have the trigger, these Camilles, these Orns, these types of champions to force the fight so you can abuse your gold advantage. Then you must match the solo lanes. Do not let Perks and Wonder play their 1-3-1 style. Invictus Gaming can play that style as well. Now prove that you play it better.
All right, win conditions in mind, a year's worth of evidence in the back of your brains. It's time for the predictions. Our first semifinal bout, G2 versus Invictus Gaming. Who books their trip to the finals first?
Okay, I'm gonna go G2 3-2. And the reason why is because we haven't seen Invictus Gaming really play that big carry style that has dominated this meta. They've shown it a couple times. The Shy has pulled out the Fiora, but more often than not, they're going towards the Kaisa, they're going towards the Scion, and we have proven at this tournament that it doesn't work. And until IG show me otherwise, I have to go with what's working in this meta, and G2 have it.
I see surprise on the face of Deficio. What's your prediction?
I thought I was going to be the only one going with G2 here. I also got them 3-2 in this series, but I'm actually basing this on a couple of predictions in my head that I need to see happen for this to work out.
Okay.
Specifically Jankos against Ning. I want Jankos to win this matchup. I need Jankos to take things like Xin Zhao away from Ning. If that happens, he will do much better. And then also, I look at G2's overall draft. I actually think now they have so many picks in these solo laners, from Akali, Aatrox to probably a Victor. These kind of champions will actually give them the advantage in the draft phase, and that will be enough for them to win.
All right, Jat, drive us home.
IG's 36-2 in the regular season.
This is playoffs, man. It's not
Have the
regular
most
season.
explosive early game of all these teams that have dominant solo laners. I think it could happen as a 3-0. Double G2 predictions coming in.
I'm surprised as well. We got double G2 here.
What's wild to
I like
me,
Jat.
more so than the actual call of who wins, is the 3-2 versus the 3-0
Listen,
prediction.
if this breaks in IG's favor, I think it breaks hard, is basically
right.
how it works. Because if they smash those solo lanes, G2's ability to draw it late goes away.
The countdown has started, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head inside the arena.